Did you know that indigenous tribes were the original stewards of California's land, long before vineyards existed? For thousands of years, tribes like the Wapo and Kosmio practiced controlled burns and cultivated native plants to maintain ecological balance. The arrival of Spanish missionaries in the 18th century changed everything. Indigenous people were forced into harsh labor, planting vineyards for colonizers. Even after Mexico secularized the missions, indigenous labor was still exploited under large ranchos and American estates. As European settlers expanded vineyards in Napa and Sonoma, indigenous workers became the backbone of the underpaid and mistreated. California's indigenous communities faced violence, land dispossession, and systemic discrimination, forcing many into low-paying agricultural work. Despite these hardships, indigenous groups adapted, using their deep knowledge of the land to survive and sustain their communities. Today, indigenous people continue to work in vineyards, keeping their agricultural heritage alive and thriving. Traditional indigenous practices, like soil regeneration and water conservation, align with today's sustainable viticulture methods. Some indigenous tribes are reclaiming their legacy by establishing their own vineyards and wineries. There's a movement to recognize indigenous contributions and promote economic equity within the wine industry. More indigenous leaders are stepping up to create sustainable wine businesses and reclaim their rightful place in the industry. For many indigenous communities, winemaking is more than a business. It's a way to preserve their history and traditions. However, financial barriers and systemic challenges still make it difficult for indigenous winemakers to thrive. Organizations and advocates are working to provide funding, resources, and legal support to indigenous winemakers. By choosing indigenous-owned wines, consumers can help support economic equity and cultural preservation. Indigenous wine festivals and tastings are becoming more popular, showcasing the rich history behind every bottle. Meet the trailblazer, leading the way in indigenous viticulture and redefining California's wine industry. With growing awareness and support, the future of indigenous-owned wineries looks brighter than ever. Let's honor indigenous contributions to California's wine industry. Share this story, support native-owned vineyards, and make a difference.